So welcome to the course. My name is Kimberly Tucker and I'm the Director of Marketing here at DSD. And I have the pleasure of being your moderator today, which means I will be behind the scenes here checking for any questions or needs you may have throughout the presentation. And with us, we have Zalmai, who is a consultant on the Sage Intacct team to share all of his expertise on these processes for period end and year end. Zalmai was helpful in creating the guide that you see here on the slide. And this guide was distributed to you by a member of the marketing team at DSD yesterday. If you do not have that with you, it is available in the handout section of this webinar as well. So please go ahead and pull that out. It's really helpful to follow along with. And it's just something to take away for reference as you do these processes on your own. And next for me, Zalmai. Thank you. So in reviewing this hour ahead, Zalmai is going to cover these top best practices for period end closing, and then Intacct's virtual close, tips and tricks for all of you to benefit from in this process and possibly across the board, common issues and the solutions that we recommend, and then key takeaways for these processes. And throughout all of that content, please feel free to engage the questions area of this GoToWebinar environment so that I can collect them for our Q&A session at the end. That will be really a lot of value to you. We have a couple consultants on the call here, so please give us your burning questions. Don't be shy. I'm here to receive them. And with that, I just have a few reminders before we get started. Grab the guide, as I mentioned. If you have not received it, you can respond to any of the emails that have been sent to you about this webinar, and a member of the marketing team will get you a copy freshly delivered via email. Or, like I said, I believe it's in the handout section of this webinar, so feel free to grab that. Definitely ask your questions as they arise, and we'll collect them and have a really valuable interactive session towards the end here. And then don't worry if you get pulled away. This entire webinar is being recorded and will be distributed for reference after we finish up here. So before the end of the week, you'll have a copy of this. So rest assured, you can revisit anything that's happened here. Okay, Zalmai, all you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. Hello, everybody. So I'm thrilled to guide you guys through the optimal steps for a successful year-end close for Sage Intacct. Our focus today is going to be ensuring precision, completeness, and a seamless transition into the upcoming financial year. So let's go ahead and explore some of this in detail. So for our best practice closing steps, as you can see over here, we're going to be talking about completing all transaction processes with approval workflows, updating the 1099s, posting all closing entries, reconciling both the cash and the credit card accounts. And then we would like to perform account tie-outs and have final reviews. And then we'll go ahead and run the reports for accuracy. And then last but not least, we would want to close our general ledger and all of our sub-ledgers. So the first step is complete all transaction workflow process. So we want to make sure that all of the bills for AP are approved and the payments to the vendors. We want to confirm the issuance of the checks as well. We want to apply all receipts through outstanding receivables from customers, handle credit card payoffs accurately, ensuring the proper processing of resulting in AP bills. We want to address any pending purchase transactions by approving or converting them if they need to be. Ensure timely approvals and payments of expense reports. So we just want to make sure that all of those expense reports have been submitted and approved by the managers or the approvers. And then if we're doing payroll, we want to make sure that those timesheets are also approved. For the updating for the 1099s, we want to thoroughly review the vendors and the bill setting for the 1099 tagging. Towards the end, we'll have a cutoff where I can kind of go into Sage Intacct and show you that. We want to navigate the vendor record, be under the additional information. And within there, we want to confirm those 1099 forms and the box default settings, the tax ID, and the 1099 names are all applicable. To access your reports, we'll go to the accounts payable page. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see reports, and we want to run that 1099 report. We want to set those parameters to past calendar year and select the relevant 1099 forms. Again, I will show you more in details on what I mean by that. Once we do that, we run the report to show all of the transaction information and correct any discrepancies on the vendor record or the individual bills or anything that was through the mass uploads. Posting all of the closing entries. We want to identify the process necessary for accruals or reversals or any deferrals we may have. So posting depreciation and amortization entries, we want to recognize or defer revenue and expenses appropriately. We want to update balances or activities in the statistical accounts, as well as address any of the outstanding payrolls or other accruals. Now in the reconciliation and credit card accounts for both bank and credit cards, we want to ensure the accuracy of the bank and the credit card accounts. We want to confirm that all of the financial activities are accurately recorded through the end of the reporting period. And then the next step would be to execute formal payoff processes and cash management to convert any of those outstanding items into the AP bills. Now we're going to go ahead and perform major accounts for the tie-outs. So first thing I like to do is run my ledger report with my aging reports and trial balances. One thing to note is if you have disallowed direct posting in the general ledger account turned on, then that will allow the system to post to that control account. You will then not have to run that tie-out reports. So some of the reports that are listed here is the AR ledger to the customer aging to the trial balance. We have the AP ledger to the vendor aging and the trial balance. Then we'll have the expense ledger and the employee aging report. And then we want to confirm that the inventory valuation matches the inventory GL account balances. When it comes to fixed assets, we want to align those fixed asset net books with the fixed asset GL account balances. And then lastly, verifying the prepaid net book value against the prepaid asset GL account balances. Now we're going to come to running reports and reviewing for accuracy. So generating and reviewing our month-end reports, balance sheets and income statements, assess comparisons to budget and the variance, and then we can investigate any anomalies in there. Analyzing key performance indicator and statistics, and then reviewing management reports and other relevant reports for your organization. And then lastly, we want to verify and update or correct any 1099 AP payments for the end of the year. And this would be pretty much the last chance to do this before. So accessing your accounts payable, you go to 1099 reports, Want to ensure all the payments are correct and categorized with appropriate form and box numbers. And then lastly, adjusting the vendor 1099 defaults for current and future reporting needs. Now, when we come to closing our books, we want to secure and lock down verified data from previous periods, individually closing the subledgers, which includes the AP, the time and expense, AR, cash management as needed. And then say that you tied out the AP, but you need to tie out the cash. You may just close out the AP by itself. And then lastly would be by closing the GL books, either individually or collectively at the top level or by the specific entity. Let me go ahead and transition to Sage Intacct to kind of explain what I was saying. So in the approval workflow, even though it shows blank, if I go to approve bills, I would see that I have 2 outstanding bills that need to be approved. So I would go down this list by selecting all and approving up here, or going through them individually and seeing if they look good. If they do, I'll go ahead and click approve one by one. Let's go ahead and click approve for all of them. So I'll go ahead and check that off. I can close that out. I do have my checklist over here bookmarked. You can also find it in your company, all, and then your checklist. Creating this checklist will help you ensure that you have done every single task within your year end for your 1099. So the examples would be approving bills. So that looks like it's been checked off, and I can have a start and due date for these. Bank reconciliation, credit card reconciliation, closing subledgers, and so on. So you can add as many as you need over here, assign them to specific employees or users for them to complete it. You have your assignment. Let me look at it, sorry. You'll have your assignment status, whether it's completed or in progress. If there's something that just needs more review, you can add that. Currently I only have 2, so you can always click on add and add a new status to this. And then the percentage completed, right? Yeah, say if you're 50% done, say in progress, that makes a lot more sense, right? You can add the actual end date to this. If there's any attachments or comments that you want to add, you can go ahead and add this right here. So for instance, this example is currently reviewing my AP balances for closing the subledgers. So it just lets the higher up or the manager that is in charge of this checklist to know, okay, we're in progress and this is what is currently being done in the system. Going back to the vendors, I want to go ahead and show you some of the vendors that I have. For instance, this one. So we talked about going to the vendors, clicking on edit. We want to go to additional information right up here, this tab. And as you can see, I have my 1099 form, which is the miscellaneous, and then as well as my 1099 box where I just put other income. If this ever changes, you guys could always go back and just click on this hyperlink, make the necessary changes here. So if I just want to change it to and then we'll keep that as the default. We'll click save. And then you'll go ahead and make that change right there. Before you click save on the actual vendors list, it gives you a prompt which asks, do you want to update this for all the transactions for the vendors that are tagged for the current year, or would you want to have them for the prior year, or do not update this previous transaction? So you have 3 choices if you do end up making a change to the specific vendors. Now, the next one was the 1099 report. So you'll come to the AP, or in the report section, which is on the far right, and click on 1099 reports. And then we want to choose prior year. And then select, so you'll come down and select your form type. For my example, I just have miscellaneous and NECs. So I added those, but you have all these on the left-hand side that are available. You can add all if you want, or specific ones to what you want to run your report to. You have this checkbox, which is show minimum eligible amounts only. So if it's below the minimal eligible amount, then you don't have to report it. So I want to just show that I can. If I want to see everything, then I can just show all. I'll go ahead and click on view. So I have one that I found, and it shows me the vendor. It shows me the ID, which entity it belongs to. If I had a bill number, it would show the bill number here, shows the GL account, and then the amounts and the amounts paid. If I had a category for this, it also appear on the right-hand side. I can always add this report to my dashboard. Just by clicking on this, add to dashboard, label it as 1099, and then add a name and description to this. If you want this to be public, so where everyone can view, you can click on this checkbox. Or if it's just for you, then you'll just keep that unchecked. And then let's hop into cash management. So we have our bank rec, our credit card reconciliation. So you want to just make sure that both the bank and the credit card have been reconciled. You can always look at the history to make sure that there's nothing that is pending at the moment. And then we can kind of go one by closing the subledgers off. So if I'm ready to close the cash management subledger, I would come to the module, click on close, choose which entity or entity group that I want to close, and the time period that I want to close it to. And I'll click on close, and I'll let you know that that time period has been closed. Same thing goes for the accounts payable module. It's usually in the middle section. So we'll have this subledger. We want to go ahead and close this, and same steps. Then lastly would be your GL. You want to close all of your GL books. Click on close, and same exact step. Okay. Let's hop back into this again. Okay. So our virtual close. So never manually close the retained earnings or books in order to transact to go forward. The close of current period P&L activities to retain earnings happens automatically when we run the reports. And then the retained earnings virtually updates to be aggregated by the beginning balance total based on the reports. And we have an example over here for this. So if the reporting columns in the financial year was current month, the retained earning is the net sum of all incomes. If it's current quarter, then the closing periods would be through here, as well as the current year. Okay, so now we hop into tips and tricks. So you want to document your closing process with that checklist that I showed you. You can also add that checklist into your dashboard. We want to make sure that the reports we generate tie out when we perform that period end close. And then the 1099 process and reports as well that I showed previously, those are all have been confirmed. Kind of an illustration of what we're looking for in a closing period. So we have that checklist, we close those checklists, we have that post-close checklist, and then we can also add a end-year review checklist to this. And then some of the reports that we want to generate to tie out those performing period end closes. So like I had mentioned, we have the trial balance, the income statement, balance sheet, cash flow statement, and so on. And then kind of just reiterating this again, we want to make sure our vendor data has been verified, the 1099 eligibility has been checked, transactions have been reviewed, we have the e-file for 1099s, and then we want to make sure that those, we verify those e-filing statuses, and then once all that is completed, we'll go ahead and retain those documents. So we can set up report groups. Again, these report groups can be financial statements, trial balances, and it just includes everything that you see on this screen. Now for some additional tips and tricks. For companies that have high volume, spread your close or start it earlier. Sometimes there may be some unexpected issues that may occur. So the recommendation here is just to start it, earlier than leaving it for the end. You want to make sure that you update or upload all of the attachments when possible, so it's not ever left at the last minute and you're scrambling to look for it. Use a separate journal for your closing entries, or even memorize journal entries or journal entry transaction templates, something that you have that you don't have to recreate pretty much. Again, create a closing dashboard. You can either add it to your own dashboard that you have personally, or just create a whole new one. So you have all of those widgets in that dashboard. Creating report groups, scheduling auto generation. So one of our partners would be Tax Bandits, where you can use for these 1099s. They work well. We haven't had an issue with them. So we do highly recommend them. Now coming to the common issues, we have aging report does not tie out to the report, right? To the subledger report. So the cause of that is the as of dates are likely not exactly similar, specifically for the transaction date versus the GL posting date. So you just want to run both reports as the GL date, so that it ensures that the as of date are the same. Second is the subledger does not tie out to the general ledger. Reason being is only transactions made in the subledger will present on both subledgers and GL reports. There's likely a manual GL activity on that subledger control account that is creating some type of discrepancy. So our solution would be run the GL report just for the subledger control GL account. thoroughly review those journal columns, which is the subledger, journal goods, general journals that need review. Remove or reverse any discrepancies if needed, recreate it through the subledger instead. So after that tie out, enable disallow direct posting on the subledger controlled GL accounts just to lock it in the system for future. The bank reconciliation does not tie out. So some of the common issues on this would be the ending balance was not entered correctly. There may be the bank statement period and scope is not correct. Or there could be some type of transaction that is missing from your books in the reconciliation period. And then lastly, the last one would be vendor 1099 updates that do not correct transaction tags, right? So the cause would be the subledger must be open for the calendar year, and it is intended to be a mass update. The solution for these would be opening up your GL, your AP subledger back to the first month or the current prior calendar year. Sometimes AP summaries or the batches, for instance, may also need to be opened. And then you can just go to edit those, reclassify them, individual bills, and update them in the UI. Or the vendor 1099 transaction update import template for mass bill updates. So some of the key takeaways would be defining your closing process, using that checklist to kind of navigate on what steps you need to take in order to have everything completed and reviewed and checked off. Documenting your process is the best practice. Completing the transaction workflows, post-period and accruals, your reconciliation for both the bank and the credit card, have a final review, and then close all your books. And that is it. Any questions we have out there?
Not too much time has passed, so we don't have any yet live, but attendees, please don't be shy. I know that was a lot of information to cover, but we are here for it. Are there any common questions you've seen maybe over the course of the last month or so where these kind of processes have become more important to our clients?
Yeah, I would say one of the biggest one is just identifying the vendors and making sure that the 1099 forms have been updated, whether you want to manually update them one by one through the vendors, or you want to update it on the template as a mass bulk upload. I think just making sure that those have been verified and confirmed by not just maybe one person, but by two, just to ensure that whole process of that year-end closes as smooth as possible.
Great. Well, it does seem less complex than other Sage products that I have familiarity with. So lucky for the Intacct clients. Attendees, we're here if you feel like there's something more to ask, or even just roundabout questions relating to the year end or period end closing. Happy to help. Is there much that happens like in that Intacct community or anything, Zalmai? Do you think attendees might benefit from knowing where that is?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's hop into the community. Just searching 1099. Yeah, multiple different types of articles for 1099. There's also, specific errors that, it's not from one person. It could be from multiple, clients that we have that does experience this. The printer settings, maybe it's, that's a perfect example. The printer is offset, right? It's not printing correctly to, what we're looking for. So there's a lot of articles on this 1099 where other people have experienced in the past. So this could be a good place to maybe start and say if still not getting the solution you needed, always feel free to contact us. We'll go ahead and take the next steps and, investigate what's going on and try to get it, find that solution before the end of time, rather again, being, more early than leaving for the last minute, I would say.
For sure. Yeah, the community is a great resource for a lot of types of common hiccups, even if you. So actually, an attendee asked a question here, Zalmai. So the question is, if the checklist is not visible on my login, is that just a permissions thing?
It would be, yes. So if we're not seeing it where the community is in the, company module and under all tab, then we'll just have to turn that permission on.
It's
Another
very
thing
cool.
I did want to add for that checklist, sorry, Kimberly, within this, anyone that's assigned, the assignee's name, it'll appear, you'll get a notification to what you're assigned to. So that would also pop up as your notification that, hey, you have an assignment that, has a due date for a specific date and just to get it, completed.
Thank you for asking, Leslie. And it's great to see or hear that attendees are following along in their system, kind of like seeing, making sure that their environment matches what we're recommending here. So please, if anyone else has come across something that feels like it's confusing or maybe doesn't clearly show the next step, we're happy to help here. But if everyone is just all set, we might be able to give some time back to you all as well. Any final thoughts from you, Zalmai, or any of the consultants on the call here? You're welcome to chime in. Okay. All right. Well, I mean, to be very honest, I think this kind of illustrates how I would say straightforward it is. It's mostly about staying organized and making sure you can find where all of this stuff exists in the system more than anything too. So I would say attendees, if you do have any other questions or want to talk and discuss about these processes, obviously we're available to help. Zalmai and this greater Sage Intacct team, this is, I think, often what this season is filled with. So please don't hesitate to reach out. In addition to that, we'll be distributing this recording within the next 24 hours, I would say. So keep an eye out for that, and you can go possibly, a little slower if any of these tips were really relevant to your process here. But as Zalmai said, start early. There's a couple weeks left here before some of these IRS deadlines, so let us know how we can help. And thank you again, Zalmai, for walking us through this.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody.
Have a great rest of your day, everyone.